Good morning, everybody. How are you? Happy Tuesday. It's a wonderful Tuesday out. It's a very hot Tuesday out. Oh my gosh, it was so hot this morning walking the dog. It was very hot, so I think it's hot in most parts of the world. So I hope that you're well. I'm assuming that it's still summer for most of you, although I do get some people from Australia and the southern hemisphere where maybe it's not summer. But I hope you're well. I hope your families are well. And thank you so much for spending some more time with me today to talk about data science. This is, I do a lot of things throughout my day to bring you content, but this is one of my favorite things to do as far as, doing things live and spending time with all of you. So I hope you're well. So for those of you that are joining us for the first time, because, I do get some new followers, please know that we always start off with our global roll call. And that's where I ask you to just let me know the city, state, and province that you're from. Just check in with us and just let us know where you're from. That way everybody can feel involved in the conversation. You don't have to be some amazing data scientist to participate in my live streams. Just appreciate having you here and just let us know where you're from. And today we're going to do just a traditional stream where I go ahead and answer your questions. So if you have questions about data science or your career or things along those lines, I will do my best to help you. If I can't help you, I'll let you know that too, right? A man has to know what they can and what they can't talk about. So while I give you guys time for you to introduce yourselves, again, looking for city, state, province, country, and I'd like to share an opening note while we're waiting for that. So, today's opening note, I had so many different directions I could have gone, and I was thinking about it when I was walking the dog, but then it was too hot, so I couldn't come up with anything. But for the opening note, I was thinking about the video that I shared yesterday about my journey to make a mid-career transition into data science. That video is being very well received, and I'm hearing from a lot of you. So I thank you for all of those comments. And, the more I think about it, the more I reply to people. I keep on thinking of these little bits and pieces that I forgot to include in that history. And I remember that there's a piece that I really wanted to include that I completely forgot about. So I thought I'd share it today during the opening note. I know that a lot of you have challenges around interviews. And a lot of you ask me a lot of questions. Interview overall is probably like the biggest topic that I get questions on. And, I've told you guys two things. I've shared a couple of different themes in my streams. One, I completely despise the approach where, you're trying to crack the interview, or you're trying to just kind of break into data science by reading the interview questions, or just trying to take some sort of a shortcut through the interviews, right? And we've all seen the sheets on LinkedIn with the, hack the data scientist interview and pass the interview with these 10 questions, all that stuff. I completely despise that. And the second thing I've always told you is about, being able to stand out and being able to do the work of a data scientist, and that's going to make those interviews easier. That's gonna, that's the easiest way to pass. The easiest way to pass is to show that you've done the work, that you're actually working as a data scientist, right? And I know that it can be discouraging when you don't necessarily do well in an interview or just didn't go the way you envision it. But I was thinking about an interview that I had, and it was for a company that provides they provide services to insurance companies, particularly homeowner insurance companies. They were providing satellite imagery data to home insurance companies, right? So they were in the insurance space, but they were like a provider to home insurance companies. And they were looking for a data scientist. I think I would have been like their second or their third data scientist, something like that. So I had an interview with them where they had been looking for a while. They told me that they had been looking for a while. They had conducted a few interviews, more than just a few interviews. And they invited me to come meet with them after reading my resume. And we did it on a virtual call. We did it like on a 3-way Zoom. Or maybe it was a special tool. Maybe it was one of those like coding tool interviews, because I remember there was like a coding portion of the interview too. Like they started off with that, right? So it was like a 3-way call. So it was myself, one of the tech guys, and the founder was also there, the CEO founder guy. And we started off with some with some technical questions, like they asked me to reverse a list in Python, and a couple other things that I can't remember, but I remember that they were doing things like, how do I reverse a list? I think they asked a couple of dictionary questions or things like that, and I was sitting there typing, and was showing up on the screen and stuff. And they're asking me, kind of like the standard questions. Still a little bit more tech, but after the coding questions, it kind of turned into like a plain interview, like, where do you see yourself in 5 years, that kind of stuff. And then maybe like 25 to 30 minutes into the interview, there was a little bit of a pause, and I could tell that they were like messaging each other back and forth, like the two guys, like the tech guy and like the founder guy. They were messaging each other back and forth, right? And what am I going to say, right? I'm just a candidate. I can't say. So, and so then after kind of like this like little pause, they started up again and say, oh, okay, well, what do you think about this question? And they were like slightly technical questions, like in this situation, would you use Python or would you use R, or how would you connect to this database? Stuff like that, right? And we kept on talking. So now we're like 45 minutes into the interview, something like that, right? And like I said, they've asked me some coding questions, right? Like I've actually written some code. They asked me like the plain vanilla questions you hear in every interview, and then they asked me a little bit more of the technical stuff. And then we reached like this other pause, like 45 minutes of the interview was like another weird pause. Like the three of us were literally just looking at each other on the screen. And I was basically like, okay, so like after this weird pause, I kind of broke the silence, and I was like, okay, so what's next? What's the next question? And I remember that the tech guy said, Dennis, we've run out of questions. No one's made it this far before. And that was like a shocker, but it was a reality of their experience, where they told me, they went on to tell me, because now they were kind of embarrassed. They were like, well, they were like, every single interview we've done right now has been like 10 minutes long because nobody can get past the coding version. And we asked you some other questions that we came up with just now on messaging. And they were like, we don't know what else to ask you because no one else has made it this far. Like, you're literally our longest interview out of like I think they said they had like a dozen interviews or something. They were like, no one has made it this far. Like congratulations, And I thought that was really cool. But it made me realize like how shallow that talent is when it comes to those interviews, right? Because the people they were interviewing were the ones reading the Hack the Data Scientist interview sheets, right? Because everybody thinks they can be a data scientist. But if you actually put in the work, then you can get like not just a little farther, but like 10 times farther than everybody else in those interviews. So that's the attitude I want all of you to carry into your interviews and into your job searches, where, you know what, I'm going to make these guys run out of questions. I'm going to show them that I'm the best candidate because I can answer all of their questions, because I've done the work. Because I can put myself out there and be a genuine data scientist, not one of the wannabes, right? Because that's how you're going to separate yourself. But I just remember that was like a really key turning point, right? So I'm kind of giving you guys the opposite of those times when you bomb an interview, right? And those times will still happen, right? No interview is perfect. You're not going to have 100%, 100% success in interviews. But I want you to be having those interviews where you're going in there and you're making them run out of questions, because you've done the work, because you can point to examples and say, yeah, when you're asking me this question, I think about this project that I did, and here were my results where I use that algorithm you just asked me about, right? And if you can do that, like I said, you're not going to be like a little further. You're going to be like 10 times further than everybody else that they've interviewed. Because that shallowness of the talent out there is still out there, right? Like, these people didn't just stop reading those hacking questions, right? And at the same time, I want you guys to think about that the next time you hear somebody talking about like, oh, data science is so hard. Oh, it's so competitive. Oh, there's no jobs out there. All this other stuff, right? Because, yeah, they're saying that because they got rejected because they bombed the interview, right? But if you walk in there prepared, you're going to have a completely different experience because you've done the work, right? So this is one of the reasons why I keep on stressing that to all of you. If you do the work, everything else comes a lot easier, right? Those interviews are going to be just formalities at that point, right? So keep that in mind. I hope that, helps you keep a positive attitude, because positive attitude is also important in interviewing. But just have that attitude. Have that attitude that you're going to show them that you're the best candidate because you've done the work. You can speak to their questions. You can give examples to their questions. You can maybe point them to a published article or things like that. And then that will make those interviews come a lot easier, a lot faster. All right. So let's all be encouraged by that and keep a positive attitude, because I really think it's important. All right. So I see a couple of people checking in. Yeah, and if you're joining us late on Instagram, because I'm still seeing some Instagram people, please feel free to let us know where you're from. Just say hello. Just let us know the city, state that you're from, and go from there. Okay, so I'm going to start going down the list. Saket says hi. Saket, tell us where you're from. I don't see that in my chat here. Sheldon says, are you saying Ohio? Or what is that? Sheldon? Sheldon, are you from Ohio? Is that what that means? Or is that another city? Give me some clues there. I don't know if that's just a funny way of writing Ohio. Let me know. Abhinav 009 says hi. Abhinav, let us know where you're from. Patrick, our good friend Patrick, tuning in from Knoxville, Tennessee. Gotta beat Rohan. Yeah, Rohan, come on. Rohan's lost a step today. Rohan's always been first. Now you're like fourth, Rohan. You've lost a step, my friend. Piyush, our good friend, says hi Dennis, good to see you. Piyush here from Dehradun, India, Asia, Earth. Nice. I love that. Very specific. Thank you. Thank you so much for being specific on that. I was thinking about that, how, everybody's talking about colonizing Mars and all this other stuff. Eventually there will be a time, right, where you will have to specify the planet you're on, right? I think it's still too early. And personally, I don't think it's going to happen in any of our lifetimes. I think that's multiple hundreds of years away. And if you guys want to talk about that, that'd be a fun topic to talk about. But I think we will eventually colonize another planet, but I don't think it's going to happen, like in the next 10 years or 20 years or anything like that. Probably a couple hundred years. But yeah, there will be a time, Piyush, where we will have to specify what planet we're from, right? We'll have to add that. So thanks for that. Abhinav says hi again. So let's see. Rohan from Vizag, India. Yeah, Rohan, love to see you, buddy. You're a great supporter, and you're not number one today. You got competition. You got people out there keeping an eye out on you. Rex, our man from NYC, how are you? That's the beauty of NYC, right? You don't have to say what planet you're on. Everybody knows where NYC is, right? I do kind of miss that about living there. Everybody knows New York City. Everybody comes through New York City. So yeah, nice to see you, Rex. And Rex is one of our moderators on Twitch, so thank you for that, Rex. The Twitch presence, by the way, is slowly growing. I think I'm up to 12 followers on Twitch, which is amazing because I don't do anything else other than just push the stream out there, so people are just finding it. So good to see the Twitch participation. Alan, good to see you again. Good morning, Dennis. I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina. Okay, very cool. My sister's also in North Carolina. So very good to see you. Rohan and Stefanik having a little back and forth there. I love the community helping each other. Abe, I'm going to come back to your questions, okay? Abe, let us know where you're from, but I do questions after we do the introduction, okay? And that goes for anybody who's joining us. Let us know where you're from. Abhinav. Okay, Abhinav says they are from India, Hyderabad. Nice. So they've told us that Hyderabad is like Silicon Valley #2 for India. Is that right? So I hope you're well. Hey, Tim is back. You may call me Tim. Good to see you again, Tim. I haven't seen you in a little while. And Tim is checking in from Michigan. Nice. Now, see, Michigan, you do have to specify the city in the country, right? It's not like NYC. So don't try to get big time on us, Tim. Michigan, still can't just stand on its own. You gotta let us know where you're from on there. Priyanka from Iowa. Hi, hello, Priyanka. Nice to see you. What part of Iowa? Let us know. Yassine says, hello, sir. Yassine from Fez, Morocco. Thank you for sharing the experience. It really helps to put us into context. Well, good to see you, Yassine. And Fez, Morocco is a beautiful part of the world, so I hope you're doing well out there. Yeah, that's my whole intent of starting this whole content channel or my content avenues. I'm just sharing what I've gone through because I think it's valuable. And like I said, this is me, reaching my hand back, trying to help the next generation of data scientists. Because, that's kind of one of the things you're supposed to do later on in your profession, right? If you really care about the profession, you want to see it grow and, beyond you and the next generation and things like that. So yeah, that's the whole reason why I do this. And I try to share as many real world experiences as I can because I'm an old man and I've had a lot of experiences. So I'm glad you're here, Yassine. Abe, I'm going to come back to your question. Oh, okay, Abe, it looks like you repeated the question. Yeah, do me a favor, guys. A single platform, please. If it's on your platform, I promise I'll get to it, okay? Okay. Okay, so Alan, you've already introduced yourself and you're already asking a question. That's cool. So Alan, let me go ahead and jump to your question because I think you're asking a great question. So again, guys, if you're joining us late, feel free to introduce yourself. Feel free to ask a question. It's an inclusive chat, so don't be embarrassed if you're asking something basic or whatever. So Alan asks, barely scraping the surface of data science, but I've been programming for years. I don't fully understand in which instances you would use R versus Python. Okay, great. That's a great question, Alan, and I think that's a common question. Maybe people don't always express it out, but I think you're asking a great question. So there's a lot of ways to answer this, and I'm just going to give you my view and feel free to research it on your own. But to me, a big part of the answer for your question is thinking about the history of these packages, right? Particularly with R. Because R is deeply rooted in the research and academia of worlds, right? We have academic institutions all over the world, and we have research labs all over the world, think tanks, things like that, right? So the intention for R was to always just kind of be a research tool where you're working on some interesting stuff, in a lab or in a university somewhere, but you need some sort of mathematical model or some probabilities or some statistics, and you have this one single package of R that you can use, model something out, and get an answer, right? The challenge with that is that a lot of those instances were really kind of like I'm going to say like one-time use types of scenarios, right? Like you're a researcher at a university or, a professor at a university, you want to publish a white paper, you have some ideas, you use R to do the code for those ideas, you get a model, you get an answer, you write your paper, you put away the model, and it's never seen again, right? Like that code is just like never touched again. I mean, that for a lot of people for a long time, because remember, R is pretty old, right? R has been around for a while. For most people for a long time, that was basically how you used R. It was almost like a one-time thing, and also by individuals, right? It was or very, very small teams, like 2-3 person teams. Like it was just maybe you and your graduate assistants that touched the code, no one else. And once the paper was out there, once your research was out there, you were done. You closed up that file, you zipped it, and you put it in your archives, never to be seen again, right? So that was R for a very long time, and it still is R, right? A lot of places still use R in the way I just described. So R was never really designed to be an enterprise level language. That just wasn't like where it was rooted, right? And by enterprise level, I'm talking about models that you would develop, that you would deploy, that you maintain different versions of, that you retrain at some point in the future, that you distribute to a lot of different people, like hundreds and thousands of users worldwide. R was just never really designed for that, right? It was intended for an academic researcher, right? And it was also kind of intended that way because R was like never really intended to even leave the package, right? Because the nice thing about R is that R is kind of like this all-in-one like piece of software where you can do a lot of modeling. On the other hand, you have, oh, Alan, no, don't jump ahead on me, Alan. We'll get to that. You're asking a good follow-up, but don't get all crazy on me, Alan. Let's pump the brakes here. On the other hand, you have Python, right? And Python is much more of a traditional language where, it's an interpreter that you can write different scripts for, different programs for. You can use a sequential approach to it, or you can do object-oriented programming. You can create APIs with it. You can create websites with it. You can create all these things that really aren't possible in R, right? Like one of the large failings of R is that there's really no good interface tools for it, right? I know, the R purists will tell me that that's not true, that, there are interface packages for R. There are, but they're not easy to use, right? They're not easy to use. They don't always use their traditional tools like HTML and JavaScript that would then allow you to integrate it to other libraries, other really modern GUI tools that are out there, right? It doesn't always talk well with the backends, right? Your backend kind of has to be R data, and that's not always a good idea, right? You might want to do like a Hadoop backend or something, right? So that's kind of like where R fails, right? The joke I tell people is that everybody is a fan of R until you have to use it in an enterprise level deployment, right? Like when all of a sudden you're coming into a big company and the company tells you, yeah, that model's great, and now we need it to, feed these 5,000 users globally, and then I need you to do it under version control, and it needs to have a really great interface, and I also need it to run pretty fast. R is terrible at all of those things, right? So that's why Python has really become so popular at the enterprise level, because you can do all of those things in Python, right? You can distribute it across different servers. You can't always do that with R, at least not in a convenient and safe way, right? You can make a lot of mistakes deploying R, right? So this is why, R has kind of been surpassed by Python. But at the same time, R will always have a place in academia and research labs, right? And that's kind of why I get the question too, and I know it because I did my graduate studies in R too, so I know a lot of you are the same way. Somebody just yesterday commented that on one of my posts, and I said, yeah, that's exactly what I did. You study R in school and then you switch over to Python. That's a very common path, right? So Alan, that's kind of the answer, right? That you can start with R, and R has a rich history, and it will still be around, but it just doesn't have those deployment capabilities. And really, what you're talking about there is you're talking about the flexibility of the language, right? Python is an extremely flexible language. You can do a ton of things with it. You can't say the same thing for R. Okay, so I hope that helps you, Alan. So Alan, I see a follow-up, and I like to see, I like where you're going with this, but don't get crazy on me, Alan. So that's why other languages like C or even Java don't get used in data science due to the memory management readability. It depends on what you mean by memory management, Alan. What do you mean by that? You could be close, or you could be really far away, Alan. So this is one of those far ahead or far behind scenarios, Alan. Give me some clarification on what you mean by memory management. Don't disappoint me, Alan. Just kidding. Just kidding. All right, Alan, will I give you a chance to look at that? Joseph is checking in. Joseph says, good morning, Dennis. Hope your day is well. A little late this morning. Nice to see everyone. Many familiar. Yeah, you know, there are a lot of familiar faces today and also a lot of new faces. So welcome to everybody. Joseph, Patrick, and Rex also make up my mod team. They're great volunteers for that. So please give them a shout out if you see them either here or on Discord. But really appreciate the help from all three of them. All right, so let me go back. While Alan thinks about his question, while Alan carefully thinks about his answer, I'm gonna go back to Abay Arshid. Abay from Hyderabad. Hey Dennis, I have a data scientist interview coming up. Could you advise me how to crack it, like the basic things which I should keep in my mind? I feel audience participation coming up, guys, okay? Because Joseph, you're right. We do have some regulars here, and we also do have some new people. So let's take a vote. How do we feel on this chat about cracking interviews? Are we preparing to crack the data scientist interview, or are we preparing for other things? Give me a 1 if we're preparing to crack the data scientist interview, or if we're preparing for other things. A 0 if we're preparing for other things. So give me a 1 if this channel, my content is for cracking the data scientist interview, or give me a 0 if it's for preparing for other things. What do you guys think? Let's do a community poll there. And if you don't know the answer, if it's your first time joining us, just take a guess. Take a guess. You can probably guess by my use of air quotes. But give me a 1 if we're here to crack the interview, or give me a 0 if we're here for other things. Give you guys a moment to do that. All right, I'm seeing some votes already coming in. A good spread of people voting. A 1 if on this channel we try to crack interviews, or a 0 if we're preparing for other things. Rex voted a 1 with quotes. Love it. Love that, Rex. Okay, look at all these votes. Look at all these votes. This is wonderful. I'm so encouraged by these votes, guys. I'm so encouraged. It means that, you know, it means that you guys are getting it, right? Oh, I'm sure Rex will take care of that guy, Alex or whatever. Okay. So obviously a lot of zeros in the chat. So who was it? Abish? So Abay Arshid? Abay, I hope you're getting your answer there, right? You shouldn't be trying to crack the interview. You should be trying to be a data scientist. And there's no need to keep basics in mind. What you're trying to do is you're trying to be a data scientist, and the interview should be your opportunity to show off those skills that you've developed. The interview shouldn't be like some obstacle that you're trying to cross, or that you're trying to fool the recruiter, or use keywords or things like that, right? You're trying to just show your work. And if you've done the work, it will come across in the interviews. I guarantee you it will come across. So, not here to crack interviews. We're here to do the work of a data scientist. That's going to make everything easier. Okay? I thought there was one more thing on. Oh, right. So, you know, in Abay, if you kind of want to think about this a little bit more, you know, maybe off the stream or things like that, I want you to think about this, right? Let's say I magically tell you that you passed the interview, right? You're fine. You passed the interview. I want you to come and work the next day. But what are you going to do then? Like, you're not going to be using the basics once you're working. Like, you're going to be doing like the actual work, right? The basics aren't going to get you there. Like, nothing I could tell you right now is going to help you on your first day of the job, right? So I want you to think beyond the interview. Like, are you ready for somebody to say, here's a stack of data. I want a report from you in 2 days. Like, are you ready for that? If you're asking about the basics for interviews, then maybe not, right? So keep that in mind, okay? You're not looking for an interview. You're looking for a career, right? Are you ready for that career? Okay? All right. Yassine, let's keep Delvey, I see your question, but let's keep with the theme of this R because Yassine's asking a good question. If I may interrupt, I think that the use of Python is the array-based programming, but I honestly don't fully understand what does that mean. If you could please give some ideas, thank you. Okay, so Alan, Yassine here is our man in Morocco is giving you some advice. He's suggesting what the answer is, right? Do you agree with Yassine? Because I do. I think Yassine's on the right track. I wouldn't say array-based programming. If you want to, you could say array-based programming, but if you really want to sound like, really proper, like you're an actual science guy, you say that it's vector-based, right? And that's more specifically, if you really want to be specific about it, everything in Python is a vector, right? Or everything in R is a vector. And Julia, by the way, has the same qualities. Julia is also a vector-based language. Just nobody uses it. But yes, Yassine, you are right about that. And what I mean by everything is a vector, and I'll admit that I'm not geeky enough to know the every single ins and outs. But the way it was explained to me, the way I understand it best, is anytime you give Python something, it treats it as a vector and puts everything in its own memory space. So the way it was illustrated to me was, think about a string that you use in Python. You can put in a string as a variable, and you can immediately ask Python to reverse it, right? There's no special code. There's nothing you have to do in order to say, okay, take that string and reverse it. Because Python is reversing the vector, not the individual characters. Because the individual characters is what you'd have to do in a language like Java, right? Because the way you replicate it in a language like Java or like one of the non-vector based languages, right? I don't want to pick on Java. It could be like C# or whatever. Is you'd have to like write an array, write an iterator, right? Like a loop, and say, okay, now loop through that and take the last character, put it first, and do that until you run out of characters, and right? Because Java does not see it as a vector. Not every character has its own memory space, so you can't reverse the memory space, right? Whereas in Python, you can do that. Everything is a vector, so in memory it just reverses the vector and gives you the value. Where in other languages you have to kind of like, you loop through it, right? You have to iterate through it, right? So that's the difference. Again, I'm open to being wrong on that. That's just the way it was explained to me. That's the way I explain it when I have to other people. But at core, Yassine, you are correct. It's one of the vector-based languages. And that's why nobody basically does that in Java. You could be doing it in Java. It's just like 10 times more code because now you're writing all these loops, all these iterators that you have to do to replicate some of the stuff that's like literally like not even a line of code. It's just an operator you can add to the end of your string or to the end of your command, right? Because you know how Python's really convenient with like the different operators you can string together, right? Like one of those operators alone is like 10 lines of code in Java or the non-vector based languages. So I hope that helps. Okay? And Alan says exactly. Okay, so Alan and Yassine, looks like you guys are in conjunction with that. But yeah, R versus Python is an extremely interesting debate, and to be clear on this, I have a lot of respect for R. I think it's an interesting package. I think it's an interesting language. I spoke at an R conference back in like 2017 or something like that. So I like R. It's just when you start working for the corporate giants, the big environments, it's really, really hard to justify the use of R. Super hard. And then also, as I shared in my story yesterday, one of my last jobs, like as a formal software developer, was using Java. I was a Java developer at IBM, my second time working for IBM. And yeah, that was something that was not very interesting because Java as a language is only mildly interesting to me. But It's a language and it's popular. There's like a dozen things in your life I guarantee you use Java. You just don't know it. Patrick says, I was asked about our experience in a recent recruiter screening. Oh, really? Okay, Patrick, tell us more about that. I'd like to hear about that. Tell us what they asked and what was the nature of the company that you were being recruited for. And also, was it a recruiter within the company or outside the company? Because sometimes outside the company, they just like to ask R to sound cool, but it's not. But they really don't have a client for it. But let us know, Patrick. Give us some more information. Mango lastly says here since day one. Huh? Really? You sure about that? So Mango, I know I've seen you before, and I appreciate the support. I love all of my long-term watchers. However, my friend, I have to disagree with you about day one, because I don't think I've ever told you guys this before, but you guys can verify me on this because you can go in my YouTube archives. I'm pretty sure they're still up there. I don't think I took them down. But Mango, I can assure you with 100% certainty that you are not here since day one, because I was doing streaming for a little while there. This is like late May, something like that, where I had a grand total of 0 viewers. I would go on YouTube and I would start up a stream, and if nobody showed up after 10 minutes, I would stop the stream. And that happened to me for like a couple of weeks. I don't know if I left every single one up there, but you can go out there, you can find streams that I did where I had 0 viewers. Not like one person that popped in and left. I mean like 0 viewers. So I disagree. I was by myself on a lot of those day ones. I had a lot of day ones. But I appreciate the support that you guys give. It's taken me some work to build up to this audience, and I work around the clock for you guys to try to come up with good content. But yeah, so I had some days where I had nobody watching. I still thought I was cool content, but nobody watched. I think sometimes I would even go like 20 minutes long. I think that might have been my longest one. But I had like 20-minute streams where like nobody came. So yeah, that was a lean time here, but I appreciate all of you guys now. I enjoy doing these, and it's a lot of fun. We're really happy to see the feedback from all of you, and thanks for being a long-term supporter there, Mango. Alan says, "What is your favorite language, by the way?" Oh, that's a good question, Alan. I'm not sure if I have one. I mean, I do like the convenience of Python. I like the flexibility of Python, that you can just kind of start it up and go, right? But I did a lot of C# for a long time. I like C#. I haven't done C# in a while, like 8 years, something like that, 7-8 years. But I can still hold my own. I mean, if you want to challenge me in C#, pack a lunch. You're gonna have a long day. But I think it's Python. If I had a gun to my head, I can only choose one language for the rest of my life, I'd say Python. I just like the flexibility of it all. Just being able to start things up quickly and run everything from a command line interface and stuff like that. Like I kind of like that Python has a lack of GUIs. Like I like it simplified. But yeah, I would say Python. Thanks for the question. Okay, so Patrick says, made me want to take up your challenge. They asked whether I had any experience with R, but that's it. It was a recruiter outside of the company, which was a national. Okay, you know what, Patrick? I've been asked that before. And that's just the recruiter using a buzzword. Right, because remember, recruiters aren't technical people, right? Recruiters were like car rental agents last week. They just happen to be hired by a recruiting agency now, right? So I don't have a very high opinion of recruiters. So this is just them using a buzzword that they read about or whatever, right? So most places, well, you mentioned it's a lab, so maybe because it's a lab they would want R, but most places don't really ask about R anymore, They mostly ask about Python. Because most companies have made the same realization that R is not an enterprise level language. So my gut tells me that's more the recruiter just checking off a box because of a buzzword they heard. But maybe in this scenario, Patrick, because I know a little bit about your background, maybe in this scenario you did come across a lab or some sort of research institution that does legitimately use R. Stippus says, howdy folks. Hey Stippus, nice to see you. Hope you're well. Alan says, I love the C languages. That's where a real programmer is made. Maybe. I went to my very first formal training was in C++. I went to a technical high school where I took some programming lessons, and my first language was C++. Hated it, but I can see what you mean about the C languages. Like I get it. Like I know why you would say that. But I was fortunate that I had a very good instructor for this C++ class. He was one of those instructors that was like a pain in the butt, but at the same time was a good guy in what he was teaching you. He gave quality materials. He was just a little bit of a knucklehead about it, right? I don't like cursing on my stream, but he was a jackass, right? But he gave good information. And one of the things I remember he told me, he said, look, it doesn't matter what language you know. It's about knowing how a program works. And the way he broke it down was, you got to know how to declare a variable, right? How to do, what did he call them? Oh my gosh, what is the word for them? Oh gosh, I'm sorry, I forgot. But you got to know how to code a variable. You got to know how to do your decision statements, right? Like your ifs, your case statements, right? There's a name for that. I just can't remember it right now. I'm running a blank. And then you got to know how to loop through things, right? You got to know how to declare a variable, make your decision statements of ifs and whens and elses and things like that. And you got to know how to loop through things. And then you also got to know how to take input from the keyboard, right? How does somebody give an input from the keyboard, and how do you display it out to somebody? If you can know those 4 things about any language, then or about programs in general, then you should be able to write in any language. So like if you're a C guy, Alan, you should be able to say, okay, I'm going to go learn, VB.NET. So show me how I declare a variable. How do I do a decision statement? How do I do, inputs and outputs from the keyboard? And how do I do a loop? Like I, as a VB.NET programmer, should be able to give you like a 10-minute briefing on that. And then you should be able to run with it, right? Because those skills should be, your skills as a developer, not a C developer, but as a developer, should be able to carry over to say, oh yeah, okay, I can make something happen here, right? Like you're not going to be an expert at it, of course, but you should be able to like make that shift. And I've always believed in that. So when I think about the favorite language, like, mostly Python, but I could learn another one, right? Or when you make this statement about C, like, yeah, that's great, but you shouldn't love C per se. You should love the process of creating programs. And then that process you could carry over to anything, right? Like you could turn yourself into a Java programmer tomorrow if you wanted to, because you understand how to use a loop, or or when you need an if statement, right? Like I'm not sure if I'm explaining myself clearly, but to me, that's one of the things that's invaluable in my career, where I just think about, not the language, but the program. Like what does a structured program need to look like to achieve what I want to do? And if you can do that, then it's all just syntax, right? It's all just, arranging it on the screen so that you don't get any errors when you compile, right? Like the language almost doesn't matter at some point. All right, so I'll leave that there. But thanks for the discussion, Alan. It's good discussion. Okay, see, Alan, I'm not the only one. Michael says, C frustrated me. I had to switch to Python for my mental health. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. For me, C was kind of hard. And then when you get to pointers, it's like super hard, right? Like that's where they lost me. That was my exit. When we started talking about pointers, I was like, what? I'm done. Like that's where I mentally checked out. Pointers are difficult in C. So Michael, let us know what your exit point was. But yeah, C can be hard to learn. C and C++. Yeah, I remember I was learning in Borland C++ of all things. Ugh. Patrick says, I thought we were all doing data science and assembly. Oh, okay. It's going to be one of those mornings, huh? Oh, well, you're not a real programmer unless you're an assembly man. It's all assembly. Don't be that guy. Rex says, I love the theory behind computer programming and how it applies to all programming language. Yeah, it really does, right? It really does. And to me, one of the reasons why that's also stuck with me is because what are you talking about there when you think about, you're talking about abstraction, right? Like to be able to look at something but then abstract the meta from it, right? And that's so much of programming, right? It was like 95% of programming is being able to see things in abstractions, right? Like how do you take a dog and create a class out of a dog? Well, you need to have class size, class weight, class bark, class color, right? Like it's just like, it's all just like being able to look at things and like, think about it at a meta level, right? So yeah, I mean, I like the way you're describing it here, Rex. It's about like being able to just like think about it as a theory of programming, not I'm a C developer, right? Leon Lim, 2008. Welcome, Leon. I don't think I've seen you before, Leon. Let us know where you're from. Recursions. What do you mean by that? Like writing recursive code? What do you mean, Leon? Give us some more information there, my friend. Let us know where you're from and let us know what you mean by recursions. Rex laughing at Patrick's statement there. Yeah, I mean, assembly would be funny, wouldn't it? Alan says, oh God, I forgot. Actually, assembly is where I want to. Okay, guys, we have some PTSD going on in the chat. Everybody slow down. We don't want to give Alan or each other PTSD because pointers definitely give me PTSD with C, but Alan looks like he's having some flashbacks over there with assembly. You okay over there, Alan? Let us know you're okay. Yeah. Type a 3 if you can't type full letters, Alan. Just type a 3. Let us know you're okay. Class structure and interfaces are a bit more complicated in some languages like C and Java. Class structures and interfaces are a bit more complicated like C and... They can be. But you know what though, Jay? It's more about knowing what class you need though, right? The challenge isn't in writing the class, it's in knowing what you need. I mean, that's the abstraction that I'm referring to. Like, how many classes do you need and why? And what does each class need to do? Right? That's more of the challenge that I was referring to. And by the way, guys, this makes a great discussion because what we're talking about right now is exactly where I see data science going in the future. So if you've been coming to the Sunday class, remember Sundays, 1500 GMT, we're doing the Introduction to Statistical Learning book. We're using ChatGPT to write like basically all of the code. But you still, the human in the loop, still needs to know what code to direct ChatGPT to do, right? So you need to know like, oh, okay, yeah, okay, this is a linear regression problem. It's supervised learning, which means that I need my training cycles and I need my prediction cycles. So that's at least 2 classes. But then let me create a 3rd class so that I can do my data collection over here because the data collection is coming from 3 different. Like, you still need to have that vision to create those classes and to say like, this is what the overall structure of the program looks like. And then ChatGPT is excellent at those little silos within each one of those structures, right? But you still need to be able to kind of like architect it out and think on that level to be able to kind of put everything together in a cohesive way. So I'm loving this discussion because of that. So I'm not saying you're wrong here, Jay. They can be complicated in C and Java, but the skill is in knowing the class that you need and why. Like, what do you need it to do? Where is it going to inherit from? And, what libraries each individual class needs. Like that's the skill, right? Everything else is just a ChatGPT prompt, right? The stuff that comes below that, right? But thanks for that, Jay. Good insight there. Leon Lim says, The word you mentioned, you've forgotten. Okay, thank you for that, Leon. No, it's not. It's not recursions. It's control statements. That's what it was. It's control statements, right? Ifs, if statements, else, case statements. They're known as control statements. That's what it is. So learn how to declare a variable, learn your control statements, learn your loops, and learn your inputs and outputs, right? How do I get from the keyboard? How do I push out to the screen? If you learn those 4 things, or if you think about programs in those 4 things, you should be able to go from language to language. But thank you for that, Leon. The word I was thinking about was actually control statements. You see, guys, I'm an old man. I forget these things. So sorry about that, but yeah, control statements is what I was looking for. Alan says I'm okay. Okay, Alan, good to hear that you're okay. Let us know if you need help over there. Leon says, just stumble on this channel. Greetings from Malaysia. Oh, wonderful, Leon. Thanks for joining us. Hopefully you found me on one of the YouTube suggestion pages or something, because that's where they say you're supposed to be if you're running a good stream or something. But thanks for joining us, Leon. I think it's pretty late in Malaysia for you, so thanks for staying up with us. I'm going to be trying to run more Asia-friendly streams. I did that 2 weeks ago, and it went really well. It was actually a pretty good turnout. So I might do that again this week. So look out for that, Leon. Maybe some more Asia-friendly times for my streams. All right, guys. So I'm looking through the chat. I think I've hit on just about every question, but I'm loving the discussion that we're having regarding the classes and the different languages and things like that. Really insightful stuff, guys. Thanks so much for that. A lot of fun. You know, ever since last week, the chat has been coming so strong with the questions. You guys have been super strong on some of these questions. I love it. Mustafa says, hi, Dennis. Hey, Mustafa, our man in Rabat, I believe. I believe you're in Rabat. So multiple viewers from Morocco on the stream today. Beautiful country, by the way, Morocco. I spent quite a bit of time there. Cosmic rays? Cosmic rays? I get it. I see what you did there. I see what you did there, Cosmic rays. Hi, Dennis. I appreciate the work you're doing and like to learn through your videos. Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate you saying that. You know, I think I've shared this before. I can't remember, but I actually come from a family of teachers. My dad was a teacher for a long time. Like he was at his school for like 32 years, 31 years, something like that. And my mom was a teacher in the inner city. She's a math teacher for junior high students. She always liked taking the tough assignments. So she's a math teacher for was a math teacher for junior high. So yeah, so I come from a family of teachers. So they would be disappointed in me if I didn't do a good job with this. But I'm just sharing with you guys what I know. You know, I'm just sharing what I know, just passing on my knowledge, my experience to the rest of you. Mustafa says, yes, thank you. Yep, I remember you're from Rabat, so hope you're doing well out there in Rabat. Never made it there, but I heard it's a beautiful city. Alan says, one of the things that got me into data science is the fitness app Strava. I was just fascinated by looking at my steps. Okay, cool. Cool. Yeah. Whatever fascinates you, right? I mean, for me, it was understanding probabilities and those numbers. You know, that's kind of what got me interested. But yeah, I mean, if Strava inspired you, then that's fantastic, Alan. Hi, Dennis. What do you think about LLMs and AI agents hype? Yeah, you know, we had really good discussion on LLMs yesterday. This is all early stuff. This is all early stuff, Mustafa. We've only just begun when it comes to LLMs. We've only just begun. So it's kind of concerning when people are so quick to move on and say, oh, well, we're on to the next thing. Well, you know, there's a lot still to come with LLMs. A lot more still to come with generative images and generative video, right? Like, if you look at some of the current generative video engines out there, some of them kind of stink. You know, some of them still need a lot more work to do. Now, part of that is due to processing power, and some of these models take like literally weeks and weeks to train, right? So some models are training right now as we speak that are going to wow us in like 5 months or whatever, right? Like, because some of these models really take a long time. I think they said that, don't quote me on this, but I think I read somewhere where like the what is it, the latest model from OpenAI, the ChatGPT 4.0, I think they said that was like a 4-month training cycle or something ridiculous like that, like multiple months, right? Which makes sense, you know. They're using a lot of information, a lot of documents, a lot of nodes. But yeah, I mean, some of the other stuff out there is kind of still, you know, still maturing, right? There's, as we say in a corporate environment, there's room for improvement, right? So there's still a ways to go. Okay, so Patrick says Llama 3.1 took nearly 4 million GPU hours. Yeah, I believe it. I've heard similar things where it's just, you know, this isn't just something you train in an afternoon, right? You're training this for like weeks on end, not even days, but weeks on end, right? Patrick says the big version. Yeah, Patrick, yeah, we can assume that. Some of the smaller versions, yeah, probably don't take nearly as long, but still a pretty good investment, right? Like you're still not training any size LLM like in a day, right? It's not one of those models where you just train it and then go have lunch, you come back and you have your results, right? You know? But yeah, it's definitely, you know, something where like literally the models are being trained as we speak. Mustafa said, God bless NVIDIA. Yeah, well, I don't know how they did in the stock market yesterday. I don't know if they were blessed yesterday. But yeah, you know, NVIDIA is in their GPUs. So Mustafa says, do we even know when or what's the next step? Yeah, absolutely, Mustafa. So the way I see it is right now we're using LLMs as they are, right? We're all using the APIs. We're all using ChatGPT. You know, companies are basically just wrapping their software around ChatGPT and calling it a new product, right? Which is dumb, but it's happening. The next phase is you're going to have companies that are going to jump really deep into fine tuning, where they're going to take those models and they're going to fine tune it to their documents. And that's, you know, the smarter companies are already doing that. But that phase will be with us for a long time, the fine-tuning phase. And then the third phase is when people will say, well, no, I don't want to just fine-tune. I don't want to use Llama. I don't want to use whatever. I want to build my LLM from the ground up. I want my own company-specific LLM with nothing but my documents in it, and I want to do that from the ground up. That's going to happen too. That's the third phase. So that's where I see it going. That's where I see it going. You know, am I right on that? I don't know, but you know, just my experience and you know my forecasting abilities, my well-trained algorithm up here in my brain tells me that these are the next phases that are still to come. But right now, what you're seeing, you know, it's still early. You know, still early. Lots of opportunities there. Mustafa says it was a red day for all. Yeah. I haven't looked. You know, I have some investments and I haven't looked. I'm too afraid to look. I try to take a long-term view to my investments. So I haven't looked, but yeah, I heard it was bad. And I have a lot. I hold a lot of SPY. I like the S&P 500. I'm a boring investor. So yeah. So I don't know what it looks like in there, but I don't want to look until I absolutely have to look. But I heard it was bad. But yeah, Cosmic Ray says, Dennis, are you there on LinkedIn? I'd love to connect with you. Yes, you can find me on my company page. My company page is Data Science with Dennis. You can look that up on LinkedIn. Happy to connect with you via my company page, and you can go from there. Just so you guys know, I'm very cautious to connect with people on my personal page, unless I've met you in person or have a personal relationship with you, because I don't want to get burned by somebody like a scammer or somebody contacting my network, because, you know, I have a couple of people in my network, you know, so I don't want to, you know, I don't want to ruin their days because somebody will say, oh, I know Dennis, so I want to know you. Can we connect? And they end up being a scammer or something, right? So I'm really cautious about that. But on my company page, I'm happy to connect with you. I post materials there. I'll happily interact with you there. Data Science with Dennis as a LinkedIn company page is where you can find me. Smeeter Patel says, Smeeter, let us know where you're from. Introduce yourself. I don't think I've seen you in the chat before. I am good in machine learning. Give me right direction for the future perspective for master degree in USA. I have chose for master in data science or MS in artificial intelligence or MS in computer. Are you finding a lot of difference between these curriculums? Because there probably isn't, right? I have yet to have somebody show me two master's programs with these titles that are like significantly different from one another. So are you finding that? Like, you know, and by the way, anybody in the chat can answer that. Like, are you guys really finding significant differences? Because I don't see it, right? Like, there shouldn't be that many differences where it's going to be like a fundamentally different degree between data science and AI. Like, yes, of course, you might have one or two specialty courses, but like, I'm willing to guess like 90% of your classes would be the same. So try not to get too caught up in that, Smitter. Try not to, because it's probably not as big of a difference as you would think. Okay? Yassine says, since the use of notebooks is not professional work, what methodology can we use for EDA? Can we use a notebook for, and then can we continue the work in a professional environment, or are there other approaches? Great question, Yassine. So realize that a lot of the, you asked about LLMs earlier. There are some LLM tools, particularly ChatGPT, that are getting very good at EDA. So my advice to you is your very first pass of EDA, consider an LLM tool. They're getting increasingly good at that. So that's my first advice to you. My second advice to you is the reminder that EDA is not just for you. It's for the business. You want to enable them to play with the data and be able to cut their own data and generate their own insights. You can do that, of course, but you are not a business team, right? They are in a much better position to do that than you are. So again, that's why I lean so much towards Power BI and Tableau, because those tools do allow you to deploy a dashboard and say, here's your data in a visual way. I've given you all these filters on a variety of different things. Go to it. And then they're going to come back to you and they're going to say, hey, we did this and we found this that's interesting. Can you help us figure out this? When EDA results in them, not you, but them coming back to you with ideas, that's when you're doing it at a high level. So Yassine, the answer is do it in whatever tool allows you to enable them to play with the data, to work with the data. Are you going to send a notebook to a stakeholder? Of course not, right? Are you going to send a PowerPoint to a stakeholder? Yeah, that happens all the time, but that's one way, right? They can't sit there and play with data inside a PowerPoint, right? So do whatever tool allows the business, not you, the business, to make decisions on what they're curious about in the data and what those next steps should be. Because that's really when you're winning, right? Your team is like really functioning well at that point when you can do that. And I don't mean just your data science team. I mean like your overall like stakeholder and company team. Okay. Yeah, Stippus, you're bringing up some great items. As someone who has a data science master's, I would advise caution in choosing a program. Grad school isn't regulated like undergrad, so there is less guarantee that it's a quality program. Absolutely, Stippus. And that's the reason I asked that question, because I think I mentioned this yesterday too. Just like everything else, schools are using AI as a tag to sound edgy, right? Like, oh, no, that's a data science program. We offer an AI program, right? They're no different. Schools are marketing agents also, right? So that's why I'm asking that, because it's probably the same curriculum, just with the AI name, right? Like there is no inherently different AI versus data science curriculum. So make sure you spend the time, and I think Stippus here is giving you some good advice, right? Mustafa says, I totally agree with you, Dennis. Well, if only the rest of the world would agree with me too, things would be a lot easier. But thank you for that, Mustafa. Oh, Harish. Oh, Harish, you're a little late to the chat, my friend. I have cracked a job in India, which is ETL developer. The package is very less, like $1,700 per year. What should I do? Should I join a master's or should I join the job? Need your advice for this. Harish, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you here, because on the one hand, if you're smart enough to hey Harish, let's slow down with the messages. I'm trying to get to your question, okay? I get a lot of questions, so I promise you that I'm trying to get to it in the chat, okay? But really, this is a personal decision. I mean, I can't comment on your finances, and I can't comment on the availability of master's programs, that would be available to you, right? So I think this is just a personal decision on your part, okay? Stippus says, on the subject of Tableau, is there anything it can do that can't be done with like a Dash app or a Shiny app? A couple of things. Tableau is well, it depends on how your individual company structures it out, but Tableau does have a better licensing structure so that people can have it locally, right? That can be important for their accessibility to get the data, or maybe come up with their own cuts of data. Super important. Tableau also has very good single sign-on and security integrations, which I'm pretty sure you wouldn't get via Shiny, right? You got to remember, guys, when you're working at a large company, I talk very little about cybersecurity on my channel because I'm not an expert in it. But when you get to a large company, security issues become a concern, right? Like doing single sign-on and authentication versus authorization, things like that, right? You can't do that with Shiny. You can do it with Tableau, you can do it with Power BI, you can do it with MicroStrategy, right? But Shiny, kind of hard, like super hard to do it in that, right? So little things like that, Stippus, you still need to be aware of, okay? Yassine says, thank you. I hope that was helpful. Adarsh says, not a good coder, but I find Power BI and Tableau interesting. As a fresher, what kind of project should I do? Non-coding to get some good job. Anything that's visualization based, right? Go find yourself. Alan says Tableau is harder to spell. Nice. Very good. Alan, why don't you write us a C item or a C program that immediately finds all improper misspellings of Tableau? Why don't you get working on that, Alan? That would be funny. All right, sorry, Darsh. Coming back to your question. Anything that has data, right? Especially deep data, right? Like, I don't know what your interests are, but find one of your interests and find deep data, right? Like just today, I was reading an article, I was reading a baseball article. There's a baseball team here in the US that has now lost 21 games in a row. I think that's it. They either tied or it set a new record for their league, for their division, for the American League, right? Like that's an amazing feat to happen. And do you guys know how much data is available for American baseball? Like, have you guys ever looked at that? There's like 1 million records available for American baseball, right? So I'm just putting that out there because it's an article I read and I think it's interesting, and there's like super deep data for it, right? There's like data going back to like the 1800s on American baseball. So Adarsh, find something that's interesting to you. Find something that's deep data. You don't have to get fancy with it. Just feed it from CSV, right? And then create some dashboards on it. Create dashboards that allow people to do their own cuts of data, right? Don't do dashboards that where you are giving the insights. Create a dashboard where they can find their own insights. Don't misunderstand me. You can do it as an iterative process, right? Your first task is to find and load the data. The second task is to do dashboards for yourself. And then the third task is to do dashboards for other people, right? So think about it in those phases and just find something that is interesting to you. Okay? Tableau or Power BI, whatever your company offers. I mean, that's really what it comes down to, right? A lot of people love Tableau. It has a big install base. Power BI has increased because it's Microsoft, and Microsoft already has a lot of companies with their, what do they call these? These enterprise agreements, right? The EA agreements, where they already provide all software packages that come out by Microsoft. So that's why Power BI has been able to rise so fast, because if you're somebody who already has like a Windows and Office contract with Microsoft, they'll just throw in Power BI as an add-on, right? So really, it's just whatever your company offers. Some companies offer both, so you might be better off just learning both. There is no choice to be made, but it's just whatever's out there. Stippus says, "I love the name Tableau because it just means table in French." Yeah, very creative names. I love that, Stippus. Thank you for pointing that out. All right, I like closing out on a high note, and Stippus has given us a high note there as far as the jabs at Tableau. I love it. And Alan tomorrow is going to have our C program to find all the Tableau misspelling. So thank you so much for that, Alan. But thanks so much for spending the time with me. Really great discussion today. I love talking about some of these object stuffs in the different languages. So I hope you guys have a good rest of your day. Stay safe. Take care of yourselves and take care of your families, and I'll see you next time.